Welcome to you, the viewers, and stay tuned for a very interesting show today with us on Staying in Touch. The issue will be exploring today is very important to each and every one of you and every person in the Durham region, indeed every person in the GTA. I've spoken with each mayor in the municipalities. The concept of the new region city GTA is important to our communities. The discussion on GTA began with the Golden Task Force report, and it was commissioned by the M.P.P government and was received recently by the Minister of Municipal Affairs, the Honourable Leach. There were some 51 recommendations, which we'll be exploring some of them today. Central to the issue really was an issue of governance and the issue of property tax assessment, as well as setting a vision for the future. I am very fortunate to have with me on the show today two guests who are very central to this issue. First, the Honourable Leach, the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing, and welcome, Al. Thank you very much for attending. And also Mr. Jim Whitty, Chairman of the Durham Region and former Mayor of Ajax. Welcome, Jim.
Thank you, John.
I welcome you both to the show, and I look forward to an interesting and lively debate. First, let me start by asking you, Minister, tell the people of Durham what plans you have for the review of the GTA report.
Well, we've received the report, as you know, John, and it contained 51 recommendations that have an effect on millions of people and for decades to come. Before we do anything with the report, we think that it's important to give all of the individuals, municipalities and agencies that had input into the recommendations an opportunity now to comment on the recommendations. So we'll be establishing a panel that will hold public meetings and give everybody an opportunity to comment before we make any decisions whatsoever.
I don't want to put you on the spot, Minister, but you're not prepared today to make any announcements on who the people on the panel are. And are there people from the Durham region on that panel?
Well, I'm not prepared to tell you who they are because I want to take the names to my caucus colleagues to give them an opportunity to comment on them, but I can assure you that there will be a representative from Durham.
Very good. Well, Chairman Whitty, I know you've read the report, and I've read many of your comments in the press, and I give you an opportunity to speak for Durham on this very important report. And how do you see the process going?
Well, John, I see the process, according to what I've heard and read, maybe proceeding a little quicker than what I would like to see. However, I agree with the Minister's comments about setting up the task force. I think that's a good idea. It's got to be set up so that there will be significant public input, and there will be. So I guess I'll start out by saying to the Minister, haste makes waste, so there's no need to hurry on this thing.
Well, it's an important decision, and I somewhat agree that the full consultation of certainly my constituents is first and most important to me. Mr. Leach, property tax assessment, whether it's MVA, that's market value assessment, or AVA, the actual value assessment, which is recommended in the Golden Report, this whole idea of tax rearrangement, it frightens people. In fact, people are afraid their taxes are going to go up. How would you respond to this impression that my constituents have?
Well, the property tax assessment is probably the #1 issue that has to be dealt with. The assessment process in Ontario, and certainly in the GTA, is a mess. It doesn't work. There are people that are paying taxes that are too high. There are people that are paying taxes that are too low. I for one, my taxes in my own home are lower than what I believe they should be. Now, what we're interested in is getting a system that's fair and equitable for everyone. That's the key. The recommendation in the task force report is for AVA. Again, we want to review that before we make any decisions on it because it's probably the most important issue.
Well, I just want to let you know that really the impression, and I've heard Chairman Whitty say the same thing, that there's this sense in the Durham region, indeed in Durham East, my riding, that this is a bailout for Metro. And how do you respond to this idea that Metro has the problem and the regions are going to bail them out? That's the general perception.
Well, commercial taxes in Toronto are far too high. They're almost double what they are in the regions. Residential taxes in many parts of the city of Toronto are too low. And what we need is to balance it. We have to get a system, as I said, that's fair and equitable for everyone. Some people's taxes will go up, some people's taxes will go down. Anyone that has an increase in taxes, we would look at a phase-in over a period of time.
Good. That phase-in is certainly the approach. I've heard the mayors talk about it, and I ask you, Mr. Whitty, what's your response to this whole need to align? Do you believe there's a need to look at assessment across the whole GTA, not just Metro? in the Durham region?
John, I agree totally that reassessment is the first priority.
Good.
And I think it should be done. Now, the regional staff are trying to find out exactly how actual value assessment works, what impact it would have, and they're having a great deal of difficulty. I understand it's been done out in BC,
Right.
But we're having some difficulty in getting facts and figures on it.
Yeah, so I just recently read the report submitted by Gary Kubitz from the region, and it's a very complex report, but it doesn't assess AVA. So we'll move on. The next area that I want to ask you, Jim, you've been a mayor, elected since 1980, and now you're the new chair of the Durham region in very challenging times. And then I want you to respond to the Durham region is a very large area, very large geographic area, has a large budget, 500 million plus, and you were the mayor of Ajax. Which is more responsive to the people, the large or the small, the Ajax mandate or the regional mandate?
Boy, you're really making this easy, John.
Yes.
There's no doubt at all in my mind that the local municipal government is the closest to the people, more responsive and easier to get to, and I'm not saying that negatively as far as my provincial colleagues here are concerned, but there's no doubt about that. I think everybody has to agree with that. The regional government, though, because we do have some differences in the types of services that we deliver, seems to be as well accepted by people now because of the differences. I mean, water and sewer, people don't bother phoning their local councillors. They phone the regional councillors or the regional staff. So as long as there are clearly defined responsibilities, I think both levels of municipal government are well accepted by the population, far, far better than they were when it first happened 22 years ago.
Well, after 20-some years of regional government, and you've been involved for quite a while, I might add, and I'm going to ask you one further question, Jim. How do you respond to the perception out there in the public that there's duplication? And this indeed is mentioned in the Golden Report, perhaps in planning, perhaps in economic development, perhaps in transportation issues. Are there duplications, and what should be done to realign those responsibilities?
John, maybe I could take a couple of minutes. I mean, I don't want to hog the show, John,
Okay.
but maybe I could take a couple of minutes because I think it's important that we look at the whole picture. And if I could, I'd like to go back to the reassessment situation. Just briefly. Reassessment must take place, but it must take place in Metro immediately. And when I say immediately, it might not be till 97. I don't know how quickly, Mr. Minister, your people can accommodate that. But reassessment must take place in Metro because they're losing, I understand, about $100 million a year in property assessment, and this would stop the hemorrhaging in Toronto as far as the loss of assessment is concerned. And I think everybody knows how that took place because the previous provincial government wouldn't go along with their market value assessment proposal. So if that's done in Metro and then done in the 905 regions and then done in the rest of the province, then it will become a simple matter to keep that updated. So when that first step is taken, half of Metro's problem is looked after, in my mind. And the second half can be looked after by a very honest, comprehensive disentanglement process between the provincial government, the regional government, and the municipal government. And the minister and I have had discussions on this, and he has suggested that one of the things that must be looked at is the welfare delivery. And if welfare delivery were taken over, let's say by the province, and I know there would be other compensating factors to make up for that, then in my mind, the other half of Metro's problem is gone too. Because I don't know the figures, but it's my understanding that Metro has somewhere around 50% of the welfare cases in the province. And if the average impact on the budgets across the province were 20 to 25 or 30% being welfare, then Metro would have an immediate cash flow influx because of the welfare being taken off their backs. So between reassessment and redistribution of the welfare load, I think Metro's problems would be resolved with those two things happening, and then the rest of the process can take place in a more orderly fashion. And that's
Leach,
my position.
I think that's very well stated. You've talked about disentanglement and realignment of responsibilities, eliminating duplication. Minister, are you looking at a restructuring as part of the end solution? And could you comment on the whole issue of disentanglement and alignment of responsibility delivery?
Well, I think Jim put it very well. I think most people are of the opinion that we have too many layers of government, and there is too much duplication, and that's one of the main issues the report was asked to look at. The other major issue that I would like to touch on, though, John, is timing. I very firmly believe that whatever actions are taken, whatever decisions are made, must be in place in time for the 1997 municipal elections. My concern is that if we don't reach that goal, that time frame, that this will be another report that goes on the shelf and nothing will happen, and the assessment issue won't be dealt with, and we'll just get further and further into a dark hole.
Well, I did have as my next formal question the time frame. If you back up from January 97, which my understanding is that is your last opportunity to make changes to the municipal elections, and I can understand that. When are you thinking of bringing in a report dealing with assessment and a report dealing with governance? Have you got in your own mind an expectation there?
We have to have something before the legislature within 90 days. We would have to have something, a recommendation on assessment and a recommendation on governance to the legislature for consideration in the spring session. It's a very, very, very tight time frame.
So that's the legislative calendar that backs you up from January so you can get it passed and receive royal assent as well as public debate. So I think this program today, both of you, I appreciate you coming on, and I know that the whole issue is the urgency, and I encourage people in Durham East, in fact all of Durham Region, in fact GTA, to get involved, to speak to their Member of Parliament, to speak to their regional councillor, and access the system once and for all. We're looking at a vision for beyond the year 2000. We can't continue to do the same as we've been doing for the past, and so we're all involved. I just want to challenge you, Jim. Is the Durham Region looking at a contingency plan? I know the size of Durham Region Council has been subject of controversy. Are you looking at downsizing? Are you looking at responding to the recommendations made in this report, and perhaps Mr. Leach's what approach he might take?
The committee has been set up, John, that is looking at the size of regional council virtually as we speak. In fact, it's being chaired by Larry Hanna,
Yes.
regional councillor for
Clarington. Yes.
Clarington, sorry. And so that is an ongoing process that is taking place. And I'd like to comment on the minister's comments about timing, if I could, John. I agree with the timing with respect to reassessment. Do it right away. I mean, as quickly as you can, because there are going to be winners and losers in this, and some people are going to be upset. But I mean, it's going to level the playing field for everybody, so let's do it, and we as politicians will have to take that flack. But I don't see any need to make dramatic changes in the governance. If you're looking at the governance as being a motivating factor, or the 1997 election being the motivating factor, then I don't think that's right. I think all you have to look at is some form of sharing of or swapping the responsibilities, finding out who should be delivering what service. You don't need to change the structure of the governance in order to accommodate that. And I mean, I really feel strongly about that.
Well, it depends on whether you want to end duplication and waste. And there is a strong belief by many that there is a great deal of duplication that costs us millions and millions of dollars every year, and that should be addressed, and it should be addressed as quickly as we possibly can. I'm really looking forward to getting the public input on the recommendations in the report to see if the vast majority of our citizens concur with the task force findings that there is a lot of duplication and waste.
I agree there is duplication, Mr. Minister. I don't know that the waste is quite as predominant as people think, but there is duplication. I mean, there's duplication in planning, economic development, transportation, all these things. Certainly in the works departments there is duplication. But I don't see any need to change the levels of government that are in place as long as you change the responsibilities, make them more clearly defined. I think the two levels of municipal government that we have right now can continue to exist in a symbiotic relationship, but the roles and duties can be more clearly defined, and whoever can deliver the service best should be able to deliver it.
Well, I don't want to, I'm breaking from the prepared text here, but we're right into it. Would the alternate or an alternate solution be that Durham Region becomes the municipal level or the local level? Is that an option? The 5 regions would eliminate the local level as we know it, the Claringtons and the Ajaxes and the Whitby, and have a Durham council. Would that be, in your mind, a possible point we might be at the year 2000?
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
John, I don't think either level of government has to be abolished.
Yeah, but
not
can't
at all.
we just retain our own community identities
Exactly.
and have the infrastructure being delivered at some level, and if you want to call it a regional level, I mean, are you prepared to examine and challenge this whole opportunity for change, to look at things that creative?
I talked about this disentanglement process, John, and I think this has been going on for 5 or 6 years, and
longer.
but it's something that has not been finalized. Nobody's really gone there with a gun to their heads, and I would like to see the end of the year. Okay, so a system is set up for this type of process to take place, and you've got 9 months to finish it. Do it, and come back to us, and we'll do whatever we have to do. But that can still be done with the same municipal boundaries, the same levels of municipal government, albeit smaller. You can get rid of some of the politicians.
That was the whole purpose of the report. The task force looked at the options that you talked about, John, about whether they should keep regional government, get rid of local government, whether the status quo was acceptable. And they looked at it. They've looked at government operations around the world and have come to the conclusion that we would be best served by stronger local governments, elimination of the 5 regional governments with a GTA council that would be responsible for very few service deliveries. They would be responsible for economic planning and economic development and a number of other things that have to be dealt with.
Water and sewer.
Water and sewer.
The large
very few,
infrastructure,
but
and I think everyone agrees with that.
You're just taking the, no, I don't think so.
Well, in
You're
terms
taking,
of the infrastructure, you take 407. It's an absolutely going to be a major infrastructure piece. Go Transit is another major. My constituents use those services. They use the 401, they use the Go Train, and 30% of my constituents use those metro-based facilities to get them to the place of work, to the place of recreation. So there is a linkage, there is an infrastructure there. Some of the large, expensive pieces perhaps are significantly government funded and need to have government control at the central level. Would you agree with that?
I agree with that, but John, some people are still upset that regional government was formed,
Yes.
and they really don't care how the region is working. They just think it's terrible. I don't see the sense to taking the 4 regional governments around Metro, abolishing them, and then forming this Greater Toronto Council, which is going to be dominated by Metro people, where our voice is going to be totally gone, and it'll just be bigger government, and it'll be less effective government.
Well, I'm going to challenge the minister because, you know, you really have to respond to people.
I have to smile at that because it doesn't matter where I go in the Greater Toronto area. Whoever I'm talking about feels they're going to be dominated by the other. If I go into downtown Toronto, they're very concerned that Toronto's going to lose its identity. It's going to be dominated by the rural part of the GTA, and decisions are going to be made on downtown planning that they'll have no say in. If I go to the regions, it's exactly the reverse. I'm beginning to reach the conclusion that this report must be pretty good because nobody likes it.
Well, on that note, I just want to sort of depart a little bit. There's one specific comment in the Golden Report that I'd like you, Minister Leach, to respond to. And Durham East in my riding is referred to as the northeast portion of the Durham region. In fact, in the report page number 7, it says that Clarington and Georgina, the eastern portions of the northeast Durham, were exemptions and could have possible boundary change. Could you talk to me a little bit about that briefly?
Well, we're looking, the recommendation in the report said that should be reviewed, that in their view, that part of the region related more to Victoria Haliburton County, and there might be a better fit if it formed a part of that county system.
And are you
but
looking
they
at
recommended that be reviewed. And,
yes.
I agree that it should be reviewed, what the outcome would be.
And do you see that as part
decided.
of, first, the 2 things is the dialogue that I'm about to have in the next 2 weeks, town hall meetings, and I know your staff have volunteered to come and support to answer questions. Is there any urgency, like for the 97 election, for those boundary changes for Durham to be made, those decisions?
No, I don't think the boundary changes have to be addressed before 97. I think that depending on what the recommendations are and whether we proceed with the basic recommendations in the report or not, let's make an assumption that we do. I think that would be an appropriate task for the new GTA Board of Managers, or whatever name you want to give it, to deal
Well,
with.
we're running out of time, and I just wanted to acknowledge that I have received, as I know both of you have, I know the four mayors, Barbara Hall, Mel Lassman, Nancy Diamond, Hazel McCallion, presented you with the Moving Forward report. I know you've received it. It's part of the many of the reports you'll be receiving. I know you've reviewed it as well, Jim. It's a somewhat divisive document to some people. Could you give me a quick response on that report? What's its status?
It's input into the review of the Golden Task Force.
Good.
I also know that the 9 rural mayors are also producing a report that expresses the concerns that they have with some of the recommendation, and I know that the regional chairmen are also producing a report. All of that information will be input into the decision-making
Well, I know the
process.
regional chairs, and Peter Robertson has prepared a report and is preparing a report. And I think the debate has started, and officially today I'm encouraging the people that are watching this program today to stay in touch, to get involved, and you can see just how accessible the minister is. He's here at Durham today to talk to the people. It's an open process. He said there will be a council that will be hearing your concerns, Chairman Whitty is the same. He's a person that's involved and committed, as we all are, and we're here to serve you. And I would like to say that in conclusion, the riding of Durham East includes Clarington and Scugog Township, North Oshawa, North Whitby, and these are all in the Durham region. So there's an impact directly on you. As well, part of my riding is Manvers Township, which is not directly affected as part of Victoria County, but they will in fact have some impact with the restructuring of assessment across this province. And I assure you there will be public meetings and opportunity for you to meet, talk to your mayor, talk to me. February 13th in Port Perry, Mayor Howard Hall is sponsoring a forum, and on February the 20th in Clarington, Mayor Diane Hamry and I are putting on a town hall meeting as well. And I encourage you to get involved and stay in touch. Many people in my area use the services of the GTA. Whether we call it the GTA or Toronto or Metro, let's not get caught up in terms. We use the 401, we use the GO Transit, we use the recreation and social services part of Toronto. It's a great centered city, and I think there is a great advantage to look to the future, look to the vision, look to our youth and beyond the year 2000. And I think there are opportunities for business. Business need a larger market base and coordination of those markets and a fair and equitable tax system. So we have to look at the broad swing and to the benefit of the greater number of people. And it is a balancing act. And if you would like to maybe comment, Minister, further on where do we go from here?
Well, again, we have to get public input and public response to the recommendations. I think that's key and paramount. And we don't want to make any decisions in haste, although the time frame that we do have is very tight. You'll have a representation from Durham on the review group, so I know that your concerns will be addressed.
Very good. Well, I want to thank you, Minister Al Leach and Chairman Jim Whitty, for being on the show today. And I want to thank you very much for staying in tune, staying in touch. And by you staying in touch with me, that's how I stay in touch with you. And for now, I encourage you to keep in touch with your member, local, regional, or provincial, and we will try to have a vision of the future together. Thank you very much. And thank you very much for being on the show today.
Glad to be here.
Very
For
good,
taking
John.
time out of your...
Thanks.
Let's clap our hands and let's join in song. Let's build our future and build it strong.
Good day and welcome to The Right Path. During the campaign, there was one student in particular who approached me and brought up an issue that has continued on within the constituency and throughout the province. And I'd like to thank her from Donovan, she knows who she is, for bringing this up, and we're continuing on with what's taken place. And what that issue is smoking on school property. Now, the former provincial government passed a legislation that did not allow smoking on school property, but it's created a bit of a problem. What the problem actually is that the students are not allowed to smoke on the school property, so they leave the property and end up being on residential lands, or it's caused problems within the community, that churches and things like that have been approached, or it's really extensive to the point that citizens have been physically threatened or punched and things like that because of the smoking issue. But it's continued on. It's not singular to one high school. It's throughout the region and it's throughout the province. And what I've done is brought together players from both aspects of that area. And today we have with us Mr. Michael Purley from the Ontario Campaign for Action on Tobacco, and the principal from Central Collegiate, Mr. Russ Arbuckle. Now, just before we get into that, I want to read some of the stats from on the smoking issue. That's been presented in a book to assist the high schools. It's called Smoke-Free High School, on how to handle and how to implement a smoke-free school. Some of the ones that I found really interesting were that in 1993, 23.8% of Ontario teenagers aged 12 to 19 smoked regularly. The average age at which regular smoking begins is between 12 and 14 years old. Tobacco use kills over 13,000 Ontario residents each year. That's over 35 a day. 48% of students in Ontario have never smoked, which conversely mean that 52% of Ontario students do smoke or have smoked. Tobacco smoke contains more than 4,700 different chemicals, 43 of which are known human carcinogens. 1 billion or more cigarettes are consumed each year by children under age 19, resulting in retail sales of cigarettes worth more than an estimated $400 million in Canada alone. Now, these sort of issues all add to it, and part of the problem is that if we allow smoking on the school property, then it sort of gives the indication that we're promoting it or we're encouraging it. But it's created a definite problem, and as most recently, January 22nd, the region of Durham has passed a resolution that has been passed on to me, and it's been sent to the Minister Jim Wilson, who's responsible for this area, and that is that Oshawa City Council requests the Honourable Jim Wilson, Minister of Health, to amend the Tobacco Act 1994 to provide school administrators with flexibility when required to accommodate smoking within the school property. Now, these are some of the areas. Maybe I'll turn it over to Russ now and give it from a perspective from on the school and what's actually taking place and some of the problems and what we might be able to do about it. Russ?
Thanks, Jerry. First, I'd like to start by saying there isn't an educator I know that promotes smoking. We don't want to see students smoking, but as your statistics pointed out, by the time they hit high school, majority that are going to have already started. And the problem now is safety primarily. We have students, particularly in my school and a number of others in our region, that are standing out on busy streets or close to it, crowded there on neighbors' property. I have one campus located right by the Oshawa Creek, which was almost flooding the other day, and students were out by there. So it's a safety issue. It's an access issue. Prior to this law, we could put our smoking areas, kind of hide it in a corner where public couldn't see it, and also we could monitor it. I could have staff watching it so that if potential drug dealers or people from White Activist Heritage Front or people we didn't want accessing the students came around, we in fact could catch them and remove them from the property. Now they're out in the neighborhoods, they can be accessed easily. Terrible public relations, because now the smokers all stand in the front of the school, and it just gives terrible press to us as well. Well, I mean, that isn't a big issue, but it certainly is one of them. I'll give you an exact example. Donovan Collegiate had 3 terrible fights. Now, fights inevitably do seem to happen in the smoking area, but now it's off in parks where it isn't patrolled, and one student was beaten senseless, and there's no staff there to stop it. When we can keep them on the property and under our supervision, we in fact can stop those things from happening. It's an ethical problem. I mean, again, I'm not a pro-smoker by any means. I wish all of my students could give it up, but the reality is they can't, and the safety issues and the other things that get in the way make us want to have some ability to control it better.
Well, one of what I've been able to do is bring some of the key players together. We had Ontario Medical Association and Michael, your association, and maybe you can give kind of an overview of this is actually a continuation of what's taken place since the meeting we had 2 weeks ago. Maybe just give us an overview of what your organization, what organizations are involved in, and how you promote it.
Well, thanks, Jerry, and I would like to thank you for having that meeting 2 weeks ago. It's the first time that the Ontario Medical Association and the Cancer Society and Heart and Stroke Foundation and Lung Associations, through our campaign, had a chance to talk to some of the principals firsthand and really sit around and spend a couple of hours listening in detail to the nature of the problem on smoking on school property. And it is a significant issue that has come up in various parts of the province. At the same time, we're not sure yet whether it's a case of relatively isolated numbers of schools who, because of their physical location, are having a problem, or whether it's more widespread than that. So we've gone to the Ministry of Health on behalf of the health community and the doctors and said, look, you better do some research really quickly to find out if this is a widespread problem or if it's isolated and there's isolated remedies that could be applied. But let's get a real handle on this problem fast, because if it's not the right tool, we need to get a better one. And speaking of tools, I think the issue in front of us, which we all agree with, is that we've got kids smoking in larger and larger numbers, particularly since the tax rollback of 2 years ago, which cut the price of cigarettes in half. When we look at the research, nobody, as smokers or non-smokers, as parents, want their kids to smoke. And we're all grappling with ways to get them to stop or not to start in the first place. And that was the reason behind the Tobacco Control Act that contains the ban on smoking on school property. And we thought it a good idea at the time because, as you said, allowing kids to smoke on school property seems to send a message that it's okay, we support it, we encourage it. Maybe that message should be removed. We think it should be, but if it's created an unintended problem, then we need to look at it and see what we can do. And I think one thing we need to do in the long run is agree that there's a comprehensive approach here. One thing like ban